Serbian tennis star, anti-vax international superstar Novak Djokovic has moved closer to competing for his record 21st Grand Slam title after an Australian judge ordered his release from immigration detention. Recently, this is the latest development in a saga that has stretched over the last few days and stems from Djokovic's stance on basically refusing to get vaccinated for COVID-19. Joining us now is Tumaini Carayol, reporter for The Guardian, with all the latest. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So what is the latest here on the Djokovic saga?
As you said, the judge ruled his visa had been cancelled and his visa was reinstated, and he was free to leave this detainment facility that he's been at for 4 nights, which is completely crazy. Yeah. Just to think that the world #1 tennis player has been in a detainment facility for 4 days. I'm still wrapping my head around that. But he's kind of free to go, but it's still not certain what's going to happen. The actual court proceedings were very specific. He won the case out of kind of a procedural thing, because when he landed in Melbourne, the border force, I think they're called, they pressured him into kind of agreeing to the suspension of his visa without being able to speak to his lawyer or Tennis Australia, the Australian governing body. And so, essentially that aspect got suspended, but the federal government here, they still believe that he doesn't have the right, medical exemption to be in Australia.
So one thing, 2 things can be true in my reading of this. One is that I disagree with Novak's political stance vis-a-vis many things, including his stance on vaccines. And also it seems like the Australian government maybe is confused within itself about what the actual rules and exemptions to those rules are. What exactly happened that one allowed Novak to think that he was good to come into the country, and 2, that then had him, as you mentioned, sitting in a immigration detention facility for a number of days?
Yeah, so it's a complete mess, and so
clearly,
clearly, mess. That's my main analysis. But so in Australia, federal, so we're coming to Melbourne, Victoria, and so Djokovic kind of got his medical exemption through medical panels that were created by the state of Victoria and also Tennis Australia. They had separate panels, but the Victoria and federal state are, political opposites, and they don't interact. And so, he got his clearance through them, and he believed that, it's from the Victoria state. I think it's totally understandable that he believed that he had all the documents to travel to Australia and play, but the federal government control their borders, not Victoria State, and the federal government, have decided that his medical exemption isn't sufficient. The exemption is down to him catching being infected with COVID, and very recently, that's a whole other thing, that he caught COVID on December 16th. So, just a few weeks ago, well, he says he did anyway. And so yeah, that's.
I'm just going to straighten it. To me, the fact that the exemption hinges on Novak saying that he had COVID a few weeks ago, with the burden of proof on that is very unclear to me. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
Yeah, no, we'll again do that as well. but yeah, so basically the federal government decided that it's not, that they weren't satisfied that it met their requirements, and also there's just a whole lot of politicking going on. Here in like with the prime minister, they want to be seen as, clamping down on Djokovic, who, particularly after last year, when like the Australian Open was held, and I don't know if you kind of saw, but like they had like a 2-week quarantine, and that got really messy with like people really angry at the players and angry at Djokovic. So kind of I think also he saw like an easy win to be the guy to stop Djokovic. And I mean, there's a lot of things mixed up in that, and kind of to go on like the COVID infection. So I mean, that's a hot. How long do you have here? So like to go back a bit, tennis for a long time, like during the summer and like after the US Open in September, was like far behind a lot of sports in terms of vaccine uptake. It was like at some point around like 50-60%, and no one seemed to really care, which is obviously terrible. But with the vaccine mandate for Australia coming into Australia, the question was always who is going to, be vaccinated, who's not going to. And in the end, I mean, the ATP said that 95 of the top 100 in December were vaccinated. So pretty much everyone did, aside from Djokovic. And it's been clear that Djokovic was looking for like a loophole, a way to get in without having to be vaccinated. And lo and behold, very helpfully, he has tested positive for COVID on December the 16th. That in itself is like just, it's, it would have been a bit less, quite curious, let me say, let me be politically correct. But it's for people who are infected within the last 6 months. So if it was earlier, I don't know, it would have been a bit less questionable. But so there's that, and then there's also the fact that he caught COVID on the 16th, and yet he just spent the next few days just rolling around Serbia, going to these events, like being pictured at events, like giving prizes to kids. He
Yikes.
Gave an interview on the 18th, like 2 days after he was supposedly infected. He gave an interview with L'Equipe, the French sports. French sports magazine, like in person, did a whole photo shoot without a mask. And so, so now it's just like, has he just been going around? I mean, it's either he was going around infected with the virus, or was, just what's going on there,
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
So it doesn't have to make sense, clearly we've established, but can you describe the scene outside of Djokovic's lawyer's office and outside of his hotel where he's been saying, what are the crowds talking about? Why are they congregating? Like, what's going on over there?
I mean, there's some of the craziest things I've seen, so outside of the detainment facility first, I went there a couple of times, and obviously he's in a immigration detainment facility where a lot of the other people inside are refugees and asylum seekers who'd come over and have been just stuck indefinitely, not really sure when they'll be able to go to to live normal lives. And because Australia is notoriously really strict on immigrants, and they don't when people come by boat as well, they have this policy, I believe, of not allowing them to stay in Australia. So some will be redirected to the States or other countries, but their deterrent is basically cruelty to refugees. And so there's all of these kind of people who have been speaking to the media. And so outside of the building, you have protesters, human rights protesters for the refugees. You have Djokovic fans, Serbians, because there's a big Serbian and Balkans community in Australia as well. So there's a ton of them. I went on Sunday, and there must have been about 300 people just dancing and singing, and it's just crazy. And then you have of course, maybe not all anti-vaxxers, because they have a very high rate of vaccination in Australia, but at least anti-vaxxers / anti-mandate So it's just a weird mix of just these people just like protesting.
This podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports. It was Clay Day on Sunday. You know what it was. You know the calendar. You were watching TV. And if you weren't following along with Underdog, you're missing out, folks. Through Underdog's slick mobile app and easy-to-use website, slicker than a dolphin's dorsal fin, you can draft your favorite NBA players in minutes and compete for cash prizes every night of the week. Just head to UnderdogFantasy.com or the better version. Download their app from the App Store / Google Play Store, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100 as long as you use promo code Takeline. So what are you waiting for? It's unclear what you're waiting for. Sign up with the code Takeline, get your first deposit match, and draft your NBA dream team today. I've found that some of the discourse from the pro Djokovic protesters about like, oh, he's in there without his phone, it's terrible, yada, yada, yada. The implication being, this is terrible for Novak, but for everybody else who's there, they are fine. They deserve to be there, but it's awful that the world number one is being forced to live under these circumstances. Is that like, what are some of the pro Djokovic arguments about the conditions in which Novak is being held?
Yeah, I mean, that starts with like his parents. I think his mum says something to the effect of, oh, he's in this facility with, immigrants, and, just kind of the same thing that you're saying. And I think a lot of people are only really interested in their favorite tennis player and not in, kind of that he's going to be there for a couple of days, whereas these people are in these conditions for indefinitely. And I mean, as I said, like the parents have been just added just more kind of spice to all of this. Like the father, who's just always kind of outspoken and just a bit crazy, to be honest. Like always comparing him to Jesus, and there's just a lot going on there.
It's interesting because there is a lot going on there, and this is about a sporting event. So after missing over a week of practice, do you think that Novak will actually be able to play in the Open? Like, what are the expectations heading into the tournament? Like, that's something that's not necessarily been talked about a lot, but what are the expectations there?
Yeah. So I think like still like in terms of like whether he'll play, I mean so after the hearing ended, the government said that minister in the government said that they reserve the right to they can still cancel his visa, and they're still like going over it because they so in the hearing the government didn't actually, they gave like 30 minutes of arguments, and then they just kind of went away, and it was resolved. They weren't trying. So if they want and if they choose to, they can still cancel his visa. Maybe they have a plan. Maybe they're playing the long game. I don't know. But in terms of if he does play, I mean, like a week without training is a lot, particularly so close to a slam. And he's not going to be in the best condition. But at the same time, also he's Novak Djokovic. So I think he's already like a lot better than players, the rest of the field, and he can play himself into form during the tournament. And also I think pretty much anyone is expecting that he'll just he'll use this as fuel and motivation to that's what he kind of does best. Like he's oftentimes when he plays, crowds cheer against him, he gets booed, and he always seems to just find a way to use that as motivation to win. And
is there a way, so I'm curious, is there a way that they don't give an answer before it's time for the slam, to where it's just like he's not allowed to play because there was no answer? Like, is there a world where we don't get an answer before the slam?
So like right now he is free, but they can decide like then to cancel his visa. So it could be like they just don't decide to do anything and he plays and that's fine. Or I don't know whether it's today or next week, they decide that they decide to cancel his visa because they feel he shouldn't be kind of in the borders. So I'm not sure. I do think like it would be kind of like they would get a lot of criticism now for doing that, for kind of especially as I think it would require like executive powers from a minister.
Yeah, so he's a go basically. So he's basically good to go for the Slam.
I think so. This whole thing has been so weird and unpredictable that I don't even know what to think, to be honest. But certainly, like he has like very shortly after he left the detainment facility, he went and played at the tournament. Like he had his first hit there with his team, and he'll probably be back there today. And I'm sure he's like already in tournament mode, like preparing to play this and destroy everyone as he does often.
He is Guardian reporter Tumaini Carayol. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck keeping abreast of these developments as they happen.
Thank you for having me, and I'm going to need all of that luck.